The 2022 Toyota Minor League Cricket Championship presented by Sunoco kicks off this coming weekend, and I finally got my buddy Aaman Patel back from the Cricket World Cup League 2 in Houston. Aaman, how have you been, and how was Houston?
I've been good, Nate. Been missing being on the show, but Houston was great. It was hot, but it was a lot of fun. Met a lot of great people, worked with a lot of great people. So big blast to be down there.
How many overs did you end up doing on commentary down there?
Well, I know, once Andrew Leonard had to step away for a little bit, I think Peter Delapena and I had like 400 consecutive overs. And then once Andrew Leonard came back and before he was a little sick before he had to leave out, I had a couple stints every now and again. So I think it would have come around near 500 overs through the whole thing.
Yeah, that's like an Ironman record right there, I think. First 18-year-old to do nearly 500 overs of international cricket. I can't imagine anybody else coming close to that. USA left as the only team in either tri-series with a winning record, and Musa looked great in the live stream. USA and Nepal fans were off the hook, and you did all those overs of commentary. What was the overall gist of it? What was it like? It was a lot of heat down there. What was your favorite memory, pretty much?
I think, honestly, the coolest part of the whole experience was that whenever Nepal played in that first USA-Nepal match was really something special because it really came down to the wire. It ended up in a tie. But man, you hear the Nepal fans going crazy. And Ali Khan's a showman of his own stuff. And we saw in the second match, him started to dance, and ICC reposted that. I think that atmosphere was great. And I think Musa really allowed that to happen because of the fact that they had misters blowing in the king stand. They had all these things that could keep people cool. And whilst the players were baking, the fans were loving it. I thought that was an aspect, while didn't quite compare to what Church Street can be at times, definitely was cool to be a part of.
Yeah, I got a lot of mileage out of Ali Khan's celebrations on Instagram. That was a whole lot of fun. But it really looked like it was tense at times between the Nepal fans and the USA cricketers. And then we see recently Peter Delapena showing off photographs of Stephen Taylor having a celebration after the dramatic tie game against Nepal, drinking a beer with the fans, and that looked like a great way to break the tension.
I thought the Nepal fans were great. They were excellent. They were out there all day in the hot sun. Man, it was like 8:30, and I was like, man, I'm ready to get another shirt on because it's just, you're drenched in sweat. And those guys are sitting out there waving the flags, yelling at after every single delivery. They were awesome to be around. And then I think the players, once the match is over, I think everyone loves really good fans. And Stephen Taylor definitely had his fun with them. Ali Khan had his fun with them on the ground. I think it's all good fun and good banter between everybody. So the atmosphere was great. And again, the Nepal fans really kicked it up.
Excellent. Yeah. Now we have Nepal heading off to Canada to play 2 T20s and 2 one-day games against Canada. Yet to be determined. I think the venue is yet to be determined, but it should kick off June 28th or so. I spoke to Pubadu about that. He's very excited. They've got a very young team right now. You could see the rewards paying off, even though they only finished with 1 win, 2 losses, and 1 draw, or 1 tie, I should say. The fact that 3 of their 4 leading batsmen were under the age of 22, including 2 of them being teenagers. So we see the youth revolution happening in the USA. Looks like it's happening in Nepal too. That's a very exciting thing, especially in an event as high stakes as the Cricket World Cup League 2. It's very high stakes, and it's tough to get a gauge on what the table looks like, because you see Oman's already played their 36 games,
right?
And then you have a huge gap, and the next most games played is USA, who's played 24, I think, 12 games less. And then you have Nepal, who's, I think they've only played 16 games and they've got 15 points to show for it. So even though Oman's got 44 points, they've played their games. They haven't even clinched the top 3 because we have so many games left to go. I mean, obviously, I think it's pretty safe to say Oman's gonna make the top 3, but there are plenty of teams statistically in the fight in the Cricket World Cup League too.
Oh, they absolutely are. I think we saw a lot of really good performances, especially out of teenagers. Like you mentioned, Nepal, full of them. Rohit Badal, the vice captain. Dave Gano came in and played really well as a 17-year-old. the vice captain, only 19 years of age. Vidi Erevan scored 100 for the UAE at 18 years of age.
Oh man, that guy's great, isn't he?
He was fantastic. I think for a lot of people who saw him for the first time, and again, he's fairly new to the game, but he's played really fantastically. He's dug himself in, and he's understood his role beautifully. And, to watch him play, I think Andrew Leonard said it perfectly on the comms that he's a guy who's going to get, some looks in some of these T20 leagues around the world because.
Yeah, hopefully Major League Cricket.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, he'd be a phenomenal guy to have because he understands how to play on turf, can play on any spot. He was phenomenal to watch. I think the youth revolution, as you said, is really taking a foot all over the world.
And what I just said there is one of my favorite topics. Like, what associate players do you want to see in a Major League Cricket? And I think there's going to be a space for them because you're going to have a salary cap. You're going to have international players slots on every team, overseas players, and you're going to see owners spending big on some big names, and they're going to need to fill those slots with some names that aren't as well known in the full member world. And I see guys like Erevan and man, what about Bilal? How come Bilal Khan isn't in
Bilal Khan? That's a great name. World?
Yeah, right. I mean, he's a little bit older, but why isn't he playing in every single T20 league? I mean, a left arm death bowler basically who's a Yorker specialist, and his arm moves about as fast as anybody's in the world.
It's unreal. He is just unbelievable to watch. Him and Ali Khan going back to back with Yorkers. It was phenomenal to see those two duel it out.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of respect between the two of those guys. They perform a skill that's rare, and to see two of the best do it in the associate world in the Cricket World Cup League too, man, it's just high drama. Yeah, so we've got obviously Sandeep Lamachani.
Yeah, absolutely. And whether it's youth or whether it's, the Zishan Maqsoods or Cal Coasters of the world, I think you're going to see some more of these guys get a lot more attention because, again, as a player on American soil, I think there's a lot more people that in the U.S. especially that now know who Vidi Erevan is, who know who Rohit Badal is, and have seen them play and know what they can do. So I think the more we see USA in these games and playing against those guys, the more we're going to see them come into Major League Cricket. Right,
and Karen KC had a great tournament, and so that's another thing that the team should look at is how popular Nepal is. If you sign a Nepal player to your team, you've got a massive fan base all of a sudden.
It doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter. Like Houston, again, we were in Houston, Texas. It's the most American of American place out there, and the American fans it was like 4,001. That's the scale it felt like when Nepal was playing. It was just all Nepal.
Well, we did see some of our buddies out there, Phil, who's probably the biggest USA fan in the country or in the world, maybe. And then you've got PJ out there in his USA attire. I think he was even wearing USA American flag underwear. But there was flags flying, there were drums banging for the USA. You saw the wonderful sign out there by a fan who was banging his drum, Amr. So this is a shout out to you, Amr. Way to go supporting the team. And it was great to see that. I mean, it was kind of really exciting to me to see these signs being held up by USA fans. And I even heard that at one point the Nepal fans were kind of trying to cover up the signs. So little bit of interesting back and forth there. But altogether, what a fun few weeks. I got to enjoy it from the comfort of air conditioning. So it looked pretty sweltering there, and I can't imagine. It's always blown my mind that these guys can go into conditions like that and play back-to-back days. We saw teams at least twice, play back-to-back days, lose the first game, and you think, oh my gosh, you're in a hole now. You got to play tomorrow, and you've just lost today, and then win the next day. Yeah, and that's just outrageous to me. It's
And that was the majority of the time they would win the second game. They'd lose the first and come back, win the second. UAE did it. Scotland did it. USA did it. It was just every single team looked like, okay, on their back-to-backs, they wouldn't win the first and then somehow come around, win the second. And again, hats off to them because it was not easy to play for one day, let alone come back the next day and try to do everything all over again and try to get on the other end of it. Yeah. It was really impressive to see.
Yeah, and that just goes to show the depth of the teams because usually you play 2 straight days, you're going to take a player or two out of the team, and you're going to have to go to somebody else. I know USA did that every single time.
Yep.
So moving on, let's talk a little bit about the Altius NSL, which has just recently wrapped up just last weekend. with the All-Stars defeating the Blazers in the final. And Zia Shahzad was the standout for the season for the Altius League. Dev Tadani, Vatsal Vaghela, and Sami Aslam were also stars. And David Bunn really stepped up his game and put up some big numbers with the bat. This is exciting heading into the minor league season, seeing these guys do so well in 50 overs cricket. But man, how about Zia Shahzad? You know, pretty much the standout batter and bowler in the entire tournament. This guy, I think he's USA eligible in a little bit over a year, but he was fantastic in minor league. He was fantastic here in Altius. Man, what an exciting player, a spinner. I mean, a true all-rounder. You know, it's exciting seeing him do so well, knowing that, you know, he will be eligible for USA, you know, like I said, a year and a quarter or so.
Yeah, and that was the impressive part, the all-rounding aspect of it. And the way he came in, I think really fed to the role of the number 4 bat was really impressive. Comes in, didn't try to go too crazy straight away, just played strokes along the ground, and then with the ball come in and always was able to find the wickets that he needed, always kept it tight. And I think he understood the 50 over game really well. And I think that's something that's exciting for USA cricket, because we don't play a lot of 50 over cricket in the States, right? We play a lot more T20. So it's a lot more, okay, when you go in a bat, you're going, all guns ablazing. And when you go into bowl, it's you take wickets or you get dot balls. You don't really want anything in between. And 50 overs cricket, now you have this more, you play around with the angles. You can take a couple of dot balls. When you bowl, you're not just searching for dot balls. You're searching to kind of lure the batsman out here and there. So it's a different type of game. And to get someone who's really adapted their game to a 50 over concept really well, I think it's really good for the young guys like Vatsal Vaghela, Dev Tadani, and all the young kids coming through.
Right. In that 50 over format, you really want to build pressure, and you can't do that by letting the other team rotate strike all day on you. You know, you really want to get a few overs in a row of some where you accumulate dot balls and force the batting team to feel pressure. And it's just, I think we've got some great young bowlers here. Dev Tadani, obviously, Vatsal Vaghela, both of them stood out big time. But man, Zia Shahzad to do what he did in that tournament. I know it was only a short tournament, but it's our first real taste of the 50 overs major league product. So to see the players stand up, like I said, Sami Aslam had a great tournament, and they were doing a lot of this on hybrid wickets. They had you know, the hybrid wicket is an awesome addition to American cricket. We got a lot more coming over. If you listen to the Emerging Cricket podcast, you'll have heard Tim Cutler, who's visiting in Australia now. He's the Vanuatu CEO, but he's also Australian. So he was back home visiting. He stopped by GABA to look at their hybrid wickets, and he saw some that were already ready to be shipped over to the USA. So we're moving more towards these hybrid or turf wickets. Either one of those is going to help our batting out a lot. The hybrids are really interesting. It's the artificial grass that has clay rolled into it. And you need to roll it still, you need to maintain it still, but you don't need to put in nearly as much work as you do with the grass, with a natural turf wicket. So these hybrid wickets are going to really expedite the quality of play in the USA. The Altius utilized those. It was great to see. You know, we're going to soon see these spattered all over the country. And that's one of the benefits of Major League Cricket.
Yeah, and I think getting those wickets on there also, because it's hard to play on turf. There's not a lot of places to play on turf, hard to maintain. You got to do so much with it that people are just, okay, I just rather slab a piece of concrete or a piece of AstroTurf on the ground and let them play on that. Don't have to maintain it. Just come by, lay a new carpet on. Now you have that little sweet spot in between where the players are going to get the feel of turf without having to do all the work that comes along with, you know, maintaining a turf wicket. Obviously, that's what we're building towards, having turf wickets pretty much all over the country. It's a great stepping stone. You're not going to build Rome in a day, right? Rome's not built in a day. You got to make those small little pieces, and that's what the hybrid wickets do. Just a natural blend in it. And again, it's going to simulate that turf wicket really well, a lot better than the AstroTurf or the cement wickets would do here in the States.
You know, it's sometimes that it gets a reputation for being a little bit slow batting wicket. But in the Altius, there was one game where there was a 300 run innings scored on the hybrid. So that just goes to show that it is a good batting wicket too. So this weekend marks the return of the Women's Pathway program. There will be more on that upcoming on Emerging Cricket, as I'm writing something on that right now. But in in the past few weeks, a lot has happened in the U.S. game leading up to this. Julia Price is now gone as the head coach. They're looking for someone who live in the country full time and take on the responsibility of both USA and U19. We've had the fair break that just ended a few weeks back, where we had 4 USA players. How cool would it be to have a fair break tournament here in the USA at some point? After watching how great that tournament is with the players with their flags on their back.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, that was great. We saw Gitika taking 2 wickets in 2 different games. She just graduated high school. Congratulations to her. Yeah, and one thing we really need, I think I've talked to some players who just started playing women's cricket, some of the ladies who've just started playing within the last year recently, and it's great to see newcomers coming into the sport. We need as many women playing cricket in the USA as possible if we even want to sniff the NCAA. With Title IX, you absolutely have to have the women's program in order to have the men's program. So we need to basically multiply our women's cricketers by 10 in order to get into the NCAA at some point, or even have a prayer of it. We're, like I said, we're closer to full member status than we are to NCAA status, which is pretty remarkable. But I think we're getting there, and I think this pathway is really helping with that. And it launches, I believe, the East is going to launch this weekend, I believe, in Atlanta or the South. So let's see what happens there. We got a lot of local girls in North Carolina who are heading down, and that'll be fun to follow. We got minor league coming, we got the women's pathway coming. It's going to be a ton of cricket to follow right now. There's always a lot of cricket lately. It's been a ridiculous couple of years, hasn't it?
Yeah, a couple of years, and especially a couple of weeks. You talk about CW2, then you come down here minor league and the interregionals and the regionals that follow the nationals that follow that. Last year it was a great success. I thought the interregionals, we had a lot of different women and girls come around from a lot of different places. They came here in North Carolina. This year they're going to Atlanta, but then for the regionals, everyone came to Church Street. That was in the Eastern and Southern. I thought that was a great event. And then the nationals down in Florida. So I think it's going to be a really good way to keep the women's cricket game going, because they see the natural progression onto the USA team. I think a lot of times if you don't see where you can make the steps, you're like, whatever, why would I go even do it? But now you can see, okay, here's one event, then the next event, and you can just keep making that progress. And like you said, if we want any sniff of NCAA, you have to keep working the women's game to match the output of the men's game, because that's just the rules that NCAA requires. Rightfully so, but that's just what you have to do to get that NCAA status.
Finally, we get around to the Minor League Cricket Championship presented by Sunoco, kicking off this coming weekend. Tom Nielsen has some preview articles coming up from each division. EM Cricket is the new match kit supplier, so that's another bit of news there. I've seen some of the kits, some of the designs. They look really, really nice, including the Morrisville Raptors uniform, which I've been proud to say I had a hand in designing the logo. Well, I did design the logo, but but the uniforms, so they were up to EM Cricket, and I did see those, and they look really, really nice. So also another cool thing is Dream 11 is going to have some minor league cricket fantasy cricket coming up. So everybody get to Dream 11, get in your leagues. I know we're probably going to be involved in one ourselves if we can manage to. It's funny because we'll be staying on top of the league. I don't know if we can stay on top of a fantasy team.
We can only have one aspect of it. You can either have the fantasy team, or you can either have this show. So you get to choose, ladies and gentlemen. You either have the show, or would you rather be on a fantasy league?
Right. And myself and Aaman will be doing commentary for the Morrisville Raptors games. Aaman, you'll be definitely leading that, I gotta say. And I'm happy to say so. So you've got a lot more experience than me. So I think you've got about 450 more overs of 50 overs cricket experience than I do. So including, all the T20 that you've got coming up this weekend, we have, it looks like 20 games on the calendar for minor league cricket, 10 on Saturday, 10 on Sunday. There are some real good ones coming up. I think the very first game of the entire minor league cricket is actually the Fort Lauderdale Lions versus Atlanta Fire, which is 10 a.m. Eastern time on June 25th, this coming Saturday. So that will be the official first game of minor league cricket. But which games here stand out? I know we got the Raptors playing down at Broward County Stadium, the Orlando Galaxy, which will follow that Fort Lauderdale's versus Atlanta Fire game at also at Broward County Stadium, obviously. But which game stands out to you the most on Saturday?
On Saturday, the East Bay Blazers take on the Seattle Thunderbolts, and that's, that just looks to be an excellent matchup. You have Carmelo LaRue, Angelo Pereira, Sanjay Krishnamurti on one end, and you've got David White, David Bunn to talk about. And then with Seattle, Andre Scouts, who just lit it up last year. We talk about everyone. Jay Gruprana, who was unbelievable for him last year. Akhilesh Reddy Bogdam, who played for Atlanta, was very good for him last year, moves to Seattle. So I'm really interested in that matchup coming up on Saturday. Me
too. That Seattle team on paper looks like they've greatly improved. They already had quite a triumvirate of stars last year, and they've just added some really good, solid role players on that team. So that is exciting. And it'll also be exciting to see how the East Bay Blazers do without Sujit Gowda, who's moved along to Dallas. Speaking of Dallas, the Mustangs take on the Houston Hurricanes, and that's another game I'm really keeping my eye on, because I think Dallas, just as Seattle has improved a lot, I think Dallas has also improved quite a bit as well. And of course, we know Houston was a playoff team last year. So what are your thoughts about this Dallas versus Houston game?
I think it'd be really interesting. Again, that interstate rivalry going on, but there's a lot of great players across the board. The questions become, will Ali Khan play? Is he going to wait? That's kind of the question mark, because the USA Tour kind of coming up. It's coming off of the League Two series. Does he want to play? But those games always, hit last year. I thought, Corey Anderson was spectacular all throughout last year. Ali Sheikh has had a really good Atlius, as we were just talking about, or excuse me, not an Atlius, but he was part of the invitational for MLC when they played the practice matches versus Oman and UAE. And he, really lit it up there. So I'm interested to see him. Nashta Skenjage, will he play for Dallas? And again, if you get all those guys playing, those left arm spinners are going to be really fun to watch. And again, with Houston, you're going to talk about Ali Khan, but Kartik Gettapalli was really great last year. So can he continue that form? Usman Rafiq was always amongst the wickets. I think it's going to be really fun to see that matchup.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. Like we said, Corey Anderson now with Sujit Gowda, there could be some really big innings on that team. Batting wise and of course bowling wise. But those are the two games I think I'm going to keep my eye on Saturday, especially. Of course, obviously, we'll both be paying careful attention to the Raptors versus Orlando Galaxy game. The Galaxy, speaking of teams that have changed quite a bit, Orlando Galaxy, I believe, only kept about 28% of their output from their bowlers. So that's a team that's really flipped a lot. They have some good newcomers to the team, including Dimitri Adams, who we talked about before. It's great. That's a great acquisition for them. Obviously, they have good young players. Adam Khan. They have Dene Nathaniel. His brother couldn't return this year because of the rules of the out of town players and things like that. But they have Matthew Comrie, and they got Chanderpaul. So it's, this team, the South, to me, is kind of wide open. It's kind of an unknown. We don't know what we're going to get. So Orlando also lost 6 games due to weather last year, which was the most by far in the league. So we really don't even know what they had last year that much. But yeah, that'll be really interesting to me to see how Orlando does. They're a team that seems to be planning for the future. And I've talked to one of their owners, and they're very excited about the roster that they have right now. So we'll keep an eye on that, obviously, because, we're going to do all the home commentary for the Morrisville Raptors. So we're going to pay attention to that. We're going to pay extra attention to the South.
Yeah, we have to. If we didn't do that, we wouldn't be doing our jobs.
Right. Exactly. We've got some pride, a little bit of pride, right?
A little bit, just a little.
Although I did show up to a graduation party yesterday in shorts. So there goes that little bit of pride. Our lives are going to be very busy for the next 10 weeks. And can't wait.
Yeah, it should be an absolute blast. Again, it's gonna be a busy 10 weeks, but it's gonna be a lot of fun 10 weeks. Again, we're gonna go see the Raptors play a lot of games. We're gonna follow all these other teams and great players to watch throughout the season, great teams. And you know, if it's anything like last year, we're gonna have a lot of ups and downs, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, yeah. And I'd like to also give a shout out here to Bert Cockley, who has inspired me to buy a whole bunch of weights for my garage and just start working out a lot. We'll be here every week to, you know, and plus interviews and things like that with players and other people around the league. So yeah, hopefully you'll enjoy our content this year around the minor league cricket as we try to keep you up to date with everything that's going on.